Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, August 26th. Um, Still suffering from insomnia, so we're starting a little late. The nerfs have come in. So because these cards are being nerfed, but they're not going into Wild or the Hall of Fame. The question, I guess, then would be, are we going to get any kind of reward for them being nerfed at all? Because they've been increasingly, it feels like, more greedy about not even giving you gold or dust when they nerf things. So Conjurer's Calling now, I assume, is up from 3 mana to 4. Barnes is now up from, I assume, 4 mana to 5. Although, frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if actually he was up from 3 mana. And then Dr. Boom Mad Genius, which is a card that I don't think in any of the 3 accounts I had I ever got. Apparently it's doing something very different, because they're not even highlighting what it's doing. It doesn't give you 7 armor instead of 5 armor now. I haven't seen anything give you anything besides 5 armor, so that'd be a weird balance. That apparently is the only 3 cards that have changed. But notice I clicked OK there, and there's like there's no reward or anything for that. Let's see, 50. Can't re-roll this. We're gonna need to play 3 games of Mage or Shaman, and then Paladin cards in theory, and we have to do the Tavern Brawl. Let's see, and I don't even know like how I could look at these cards. We know that one of them was a mage card, so unless there was a key phrase called changed that I don't recognize. Yeah, I don't really think that there's a way to do this. I have tons of cards that are marked as new, and I assume that is because of the game glitching out. So I'd have to look at something. I'd have to go through all of the mage cards pretty much and try and figure out what that card was and see if I can disenchant it. It started with a C, the first one did. I should just have the list in front of me. I know it was a spell card. I'm pretty sure it was below a 6 mana. So either I don't have it on the Asian account, which I'm on, or something else. Let's try Barnes. We know Barnes, at least. Yeah, Barnes is in the crafting, and he's in the wild. Okay. So why would you nerf something in wild? All cards. Yeah, I don't even get that. Why is that? That almost gives me some help. Like, why would you nerf something in the wild? Unless the wild cards are coming back. Because why would you care at that point? Let's see. So, can we type the phrase modified? Would that show up because it's in the description? No, modified does not work. We'll try nerf. And we'll try nerfed ED. Yeah, that really doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's come out of crafting mode and just look at the cards that we have in Wild. 2 uncraftable, 1 uncraftable. So the other ones I guess I just didn't have. Dr. Boom also. See. Yeah, we don't have this, but this is standard. Why would you nerf a wild card? Why would you even care about a wild card? I'm utterly confused on that one. Like, I really am. There's clearly maybe some hopeful, wishful thinking that could go on there, and I wouldn't hold my breath to say that this would fix the problem with Hearthstone at this point, where it's just an extremely old game, and if they brought back the wild cards, it would bring back everybody who is kind of burned out on it. Frankly, even if you did bring back people who left in disgust very soon after they started putting cards in Wild, or even a few months after they started putting cards in Wild, so much time has happened now, it would be unrealistic that you would have a fun or happy experience trying to catch up. A collectible card game in general, but this game in particular, is not really an experience where you can just drop out of it and then drop back in. So let's just remind ourselves, mage, a shaman, or paladin are our options. We have a tavern brawl to do. This was amalgam, so I can play a shaman, in other words, and so I can just come over here and take the Murloc Shaman, which will be exactly what we need, and use that. I am glad that I have a small amount of safety knowing that the solo expansion is not happening for at least another 3 weeks, because right now with my sleep schedule where I'm staying awake till 6, 7, 8 in the morning and then sleeping till 5 or 6 in the evening, it's not really working for anybody trying to stream at a legitimate time. So yeah, hopefully I could fix that, but I don't see how I really could. As far as what I did over the weekend, I actually played Torchlight. I actually made recordings. Now Torchlight, I'm doing hour-long recordings, and frankly, getting back to doing hour-long recordings is not something that I should do. 30-minute recordings are perfectly fine now. Like, ideally, I'd want to do just one long play and play for several hours and then have somebody else chop up the recordings. But since that's not going to happen, and since that wouldn't then allow for me to put an intro and an outro in, I do hour-long recordings, and then because of the way the software converts OBS converts its MKV files into MP4 files, it takes about a minute, and that minute is long enough for me to get up and do something else, which then distracts and expands into to potentially a 20-minute break or longer, which is probably not a bad idea either. Taking a break every I think it's like every 30 minutes or so your brain shifts from one side to the other side. Torchlight's actually pretty good about that too, because every portal that you go through does take about 30 minutes. So in an hour-long episode, I do one side story element and about 30 minutes of the main story element. But unfortunately, what Torchlight 1 in particular does very badly is you have an incredibly small amount of inventory. Every 10 minutes I'm sending, at the latest every 10 minutes I'm sending a new, I'm sending the pet back up to get more sell everything in his inventory so I can get just more space. And I don't believe Torchlight 1 ever improves that, so it gets down to this position where I kind of need to increase my treasure hunting and barter skills so I can start dropping junk on the ground instead of selling it, which is not an efficient way to play any Diablo-esque game or loot game in general. I really do yearn for the day where I can find a loot game where you can just dismantle items directly where you stand without having to go to a shopkeeper and waste your time or spend a ton of time in the menu in the first place. Frankly, it could be an automated process. And what it could do is it really could just be a case of, you know, set your inventory to once it's at max, you dismantle the cheapest unenchanted items, or you just automatically dismantle unenchanted items that have no special abilities. And some of that certainly happens internally in loot games. Eventually you stop getting these garbage items and instead they just give you gold. But it never happens fast enough so that you're not overburdened with items. Torchlight does have some mods, so if there was a mod out there that give you infinite inventory, I'd almost certainly suggest doing it. Like, there's no benefit to not doing that in things like Fallout. There's no benefit to not doing that in Torchlight. Meanwhile, I'm slowly working my way through the last few remnants of watching Bar Rescue, and I am making small improvements and tweaks and finding issues with my server. Turns out that sharing a incredibly large amount of files via Windows file sharing, which is called Samba or in MBD, it's not really a good move. So in particular, I was copying backups, and apparently at some point I had made a backup of an entire hard drive, so it was like 400 gigs or something in a virtual hard drive file format. I don't even remember doing that, but okay. And so that incredibly slowed down the Linux server I had. Apparently there's a IO schedule setting that you have to set up. By default, Debian and Linux uses a IO schedule called the CFQ, which stands for Completely Fair Queue. So everything, every process on the computer is given, it tries to give them an equal amount of resources. Apparently you have to go into the BIOS, what it would be, not the BIOS settings, but the grub launcher, which is the bootloader configuration, and set a boot option where it says elevator equals deadline. Deadline it replaces CFQ IO scheduling with a deadline scheduling where it says you just have this much time to do your process, or you fail the process. Now, when I say you fail the process, I'm hoping, I haven't rebooted my server yet to test this, but I'm hoping that means you fail and resources are given to other things, and then you're put at the back of the line and allowed to try again. I'm hoping it doesn't mean that that you just fail, and you can't ever, therefore, copy large amounts of files. Windows file sharing, in particular, is clearly getting deprecated without really being replaced with anything else. And I would be fine if they got rid of their network file sharing service, but replace it with something else, because there is still definitely a need for that. Perhaps less in a home environment, but it's ridiculous to try and eliminate something like that for not good reasons. Alright, here and here, and then attack there, I guess. So in the process of having these files copy over, which took all weekend, and that's really where it's boiled down to, is like, now that I've got the array set up, I'm trying to just copy backups that I may have found or may still have around back to that central location. Although most backups and most files were just completely lost. So yeah, there's that's what I'm mostly doing. But while those files were moving, it also was slowing down a copy command I had set up. I'm trying to teach myself how to use rsync, which is a way of copying things while also synchronizing the directory structure and copying file permissions and things like that. Rsync is just a more complicated, more difficult to understand version of the good old-fashioned Linux commands of just copying, which is just typing in the letters CP, or moving, which is just typing in the letters MV. In particular, I needed to use rsync because I was trying to move a specific file type out of one file, e.g. FLAC files, out of the music folder, because even though the Rydo universal plug-and-play software can kind of handle the FLAC files, most playback devices can't. And I had found a command that would find, I had found and ran a command that found all the FLAC files and then saved them as a lossless MP3 profile, or at least hopefully that's what it did. It saved it as some kind of MP3 profile. So it was a matter of just like converting them without deleting the originals. So now I want to put the originals in a backup folder, which and that shouldn't have taken a lot of time, frankly, but it was moving painfully slow, and I don't know if that is because of the Windows file sharing happening at the same time. Probably it was. Again, the IO schedule, the processor schedule, saying we're giving all the processing to the Samba file server. There's also a Samba setting in the configuration where you can only upload like 10,000 files by default, at one time. I bumped that up to 100,000, but I copied over well over 400,000 files. Most of which are incredibly small files, which is how that always goes. I need to actually win here, so playing ranked might not be the right move. So yeah, so that's been an issue. Meanwhile, I'm experimenting with Nextcloud to put in, because you can put external websites just integrated into the apps themselves, the cell phone apps, and into the main web page browser. I can then have servers, subdomains, well, not subdomains, but sub-servers on the one server. So something that would take me to a completely different run website, basically, at the same, under a subfolder, I guess would be the best way to describe it as. So because of that, I can then use Nextcloud to just point people to say, go to Nextcloud, and inside of them, hey, somebody has an 80 gold quest. Let's see. I'm gonna say, yeah. 1 sec. I will definitely take that. So yeah, for instance, the Apache music server, even though that is, I'm working on integrating that and losing it from Nextcloud, integrating basically Apache functionality is an experimental build-in for Nextcloud. So having a separate server is not an issue. What's funny there is that conversation happened in English, and we are on the Asian account. Yeah, do we want to lose? I think we are going to anyway, so let's just let this guy have his victory. But I did install a different server called WebTrees. WebTrees is a very basic, old-fashioned looking web server service designed to host what are called GEDCOMs, GEDCOM files, which are genealogy files. So it's a genealogy service. If you don't want your information just uploaded for free to things like Ancestry.com that then will try and sue you. Well, they're not trying to sue you, I don't think. I've never heard a story of that, but they will try and charge you money for services or sell things for you. Like, they're getting all that data from other people who's spent a lot of work. Ironically, GEDCOM files as a standard was created by the Latter-day Saints, who are sometimes maligned for not keeping accurate records and claiming that people were Mormons / Latter-day Saints when they really weren't. But they are definitely obsessed with genealogy. And there's a certain logic or reason to it. Maybe that you would be in the genealogy, maybe you wouldn't. I personally happen to have just an old, now deceased family member who was really into it, so I had the file. And once you've got that information, it makes sense to tell the grandkids, like here's the information for whatever little that's worth to anybody. On the other hand, I fully understand if people just said they don't care, because that is 99.9% of everybody's reaction and responses, that they don't care who they're related to. There's definitely like a TV show where celebrities look up their ancestry. But yeah, it's just another thing I could easily install and get running. So it really took basically no time at all. 5 minutes maybe to get it to run, and if it's just a web server running, that's fine by me. Now, what I probably need to do is work on some data hardening on some of these servers. I'm not sure that all of these servers are these subfolders are asking for logins or doing it asking for logins in the way that would be best and good practices. So there's some ways to require passwords for websites that don't require passwords by default, and that might be the thing that I would need to do next. And there's at the very least an old-fashioned way of doing things where you can type in https:// and then you can type in your login name and then a colon and then your password, and then the website, and then it will preload via the URL what your password is, and let you into the site. That way, if all traffic is going through some kind of integrated service, I think the Calibre book service in particular could use something like that.
Unity.
At least that's how I set it up last time I did it, which a lot of times the way I did it the last time was pretty much just because that's what I found worked more than this is the right way to do things. It's all pretty experimental, so the right way is subjective, to say the least. There we go. I wonder if this guy is letting me win or if I'm just winning. Is there anything else that we really need to talk about as far as what I've been doing? There really isn't anything to say about Torchlight. I barely have anything to say about yeah, a game like that, and I knew it was going to be weird. I barely have anything to say while I'm playing. It's just so much a clicker game. There's just so much, oh, here's an enemy, let me click it 5 times. Here's some enemies, let's click it 5 times. And you barely even use the mouse. I did find something interesting about Torchlight, though, is the heal all spell does not work if you've sent the dog to the shops, which sounds insane to me. Like, why in the world would a heal all spell not work just because a member of your party is not on screen? There you go. Let's be polite. one more mage and shaman thing, but we could play a paladin too while we're at it, just to keep things varied. Yeah, the only thing I can really say about Torchlight is right now is the official launch out of beta of the original World of Warcraft servers, and Torchlight definitely feels a lot like World of Warcraft. That being said, I don't know if that really means anything or says anything. Other than that, I think a lot of the problems that I feel around Torchlight 1, where it's just a 10-year-old game with a lot of grinding, which is not what I'm looking for in my life, and that's from a YouTuber who effectively has infinite amount of time to play video games. Even then, I still don't want to do the amount of grinding and menu hero, inventory hero that I have to do just to get all of these items. Torchlight also has a bad habit of dropping these unique items that you can either purchase or you find, and you're trying to get a full set, but frankly, getting a full set I don't think would ever work, because you're getting too much of a variety of unique items versus finding multiple versions of the same set. So I have like 4 different sets that I have one piece of, and as I'm leveling up rather fast in the game, wearing the first set of unique items would offer me such little amounts of armor that I would have had to put almost all my skills into defense to counterbalance that. I thought of a system, frankly, for something like Diablo, a Diablo-esque game that I think would work pretty well, is to get rid of these inventory items. Is simply have a dungeon with a boss, have 6 armor pieces that you can wear, and 6 sub-bosses. So each of the sub-bosses that you can take as side quests are on a pretty open world map. You go find those sub-bosses, and then the floor leading down leads to the boss. The boss drops a unique matching set weapon. So you're given a large floor that you can explore to your heart's content to grind. On that large floor are semi-randomly those 6 sub-bosses. Each of the 6 sub-bosses gives you 1 piece of the armor. By the time, if you clear the floor, you will have that unique set of armor. Meanwhile, as far as the other grinding items, maybe you get a little bit of loot here and there, but I think the vast majority of enemies can just drop gold, and you would be perfectly fine. The idea of creating a Diablo-esque game where there's just a scarcity of weapons and armor is not a terrible thought in my mind by any means. We really don't need to ever see the same weapons over and over again. At best, you're making the argument that you're having an animator 3D model a weapon, and then you want to get the most use out of that. But even at that, that's not really something that needs to happen. You're getting down to a point like comic books, and that maybe this is not a fair comparison, but I feel like it is, where comic books or even really cheap animation in anime, where you would just animate the person in one keyframe and then use that same animation over and over again, that same keyframe over and over again, and instead of tracing and slightly shifting between each keyframe to have 3-4 frames in between each keyframe. I saw an accusation that I think is pretty fair to Family Guy, where the characters literally are just stationary characters unless they're talking, and they don't blink, they don't move or do anything like that. So yeah, if that's what you're trying to do in your loot game, if you're just trying to show the same gun over and over again, I think Borderlands adjusts for that somewhat, because in Borderlands it is this copy and paste element where parts of the guns are taken apart and reused, and maybe you could do that with swords, certainly. I don't really see a reason why you couldn't have a hilt and a sword and maybe a handle, and then have 3 different styles of swords that or many different styles that copy and pasted on top of that. Inevitably you would have something that looked really, really weird doing that, but a really, really weird looking sword wouldn't be a crazy thing. And then you could certainly do that with like a bow and arrow. You could have the tops and the edges of the bow and arrow, and then the center of not the bow and arrow, but the bow itself.
Access denied. Access denied.
So yeah, you could have the middle of a bow, you could have the top and bottom of a bow, you could have the string of the bow, you could have the feather on a bow that they use to I think stop the string from ringing out and reverberating. You could have different types of arrows. Clearly, you could have arrows with broadheads. You could have arrows with sharp points. You could have different styles of shafts on an arrow. It could be wood. It could be, well, carbon fiber in the real world. But if you're in a fantasy world, one would probably go with wood from different types of trees, hardwood, softwood. You could definitely have different feathers on an arrow easily, and shields easily could be cut and paste elements, and you can have a little bit of that just to have a little bit of loot trash, but I really wouldn't want to see too much loot trash. Like, frankly, just having an accelerated experience where you have to buy almost every weapon from a store would be something that I would be perfectly happy to play, because you end up either defeating a boss and getting those special items, or buying it from the store, or gambling it from a gambling salesman. Often that's how you get the top tier items anyways. You almost never are going to just find a item that is a random drop from a random character unless you're in a situation where you've just died and you're losing, and then I guess at that point, if you're having trouble, perhaps then a random easy minion might help you. Might give you some kind of item, but you could also balance that out too, where somebody die every time you die, you're just handed a item that would be actually rather intriguing. If there, it would be terrible for speedrunning, certainly, if you could just die 100 times and they would give you an item. But you could certainly say when you die, an angel appears before you and gives you a pick of three items to help you. One offensive, like one weapon, and then a piece of armor, and then maybe a shield. And then maybe it's on a cooldown for the next 20 minutes where you have to actually struggle if you still can't win at that point. But yeah, a just scarce environment where weapons aren't laying all over the place and you're not getting all kinds of loot. Loot trash is fine. Inherently in Diablo and Torchlight, the main thing that I always wanted to do, and it seems like the game wants you to do but doesn't really give you enough opportunity to do, Torchlight in particular is really bad about this, is you're supposed to be collecting these gems and then transmuting the gems to get that extra little bonus as a second level of gacha, and it just doesn't really work that way. You just don't ever get enough of those gems. Again, it would be a lot nicer if you could transmute things in Torchlight and transmute things on the fly, and you were picking up and collecting a ridiculous amount of gems. Particularly since the entirety of Torchlight is built around this concept of Ember that you're collecting. Well, this guy, I'll just end the turn where it is, I suppose. Because I don't want to kill my guy just to kill that guy, just to do 2 damage. Of course, he may do chain lightning or something. This, and then end the turn. Yeah, I really don't get the balance on what they were trying to do, other than trying to make the games last a lot longer. Well, anyways, we have a lot of news. Oops. Come to think of it, there's a lot of stuff I forgot to set up here. I just really jumped into streaming, so yeah, just take a second to see if I can pop up the videos that I have playing. Pause those. Pop up the news and put it in the right place. Get the music playing in the background. And then hop back into this.
I wonder.
Okay. Charge. Kill that. Kill that. Kill that. Attack here. Yeah, we have a decent amount of news. We ended last stream not covering every game. I went through them and curated moderately. I got rid of things that were kind of just nothing items, but I didn't do a major amount of curation. I didn't try really hard to eliminate things. And we have a decent amount of news happening today. Control came out today, so we probably are going to have some reviews of that we can look at. It is weird, to say the least, of where at least my sphere of influence goes, because I really wasn't hearing a lot of hype building up in the last couple of weeks towards Control, but it does seem like Control is a good game, so we'll probably be fine, and happy to hear that. We certainly could use a good AAA game to come out and put us on the path to having a smooth rest of the end of the year, and not just having a video game drought, which is what we've been having. And it's almost annual that happens, that there's this video game drought.
Uther versus Uther.
That occurs.
I will fight with honor. I will command the light.
So, first game we have on Steam here is called Gravitas, which looks a little bit too much like Control, considering Control just came out, but I can't really blame a game developer for that, now that I'm watching more of this. I guess where we are, I've never been Content ID claimed for a trailer on Steam, so we can pretty much watch all of the trailers if it weren't just a time issue, if it's on Steam. And I've really never been Content ID claimed for anything other than a Japanese trailer, so it's really the Japanese in particular that have a misunderstanding on how a US copyright law works, and as such they are applying their interpretation of Japanese copyright law, which I don't think they understand how that works either. As for this game Gravitas, which I'm looking at, this looks like it's a gravity game. So, a gravity puzzle game, kind of like Portal. It's rated very positively. It's free to play. And it also has a bunch of language support here. Interesting. A short first-person puzzle platformer that's free to play. I don't see a reason not to put this on the wish list. Now, when would I get around to playing a free-to-play game? Probably never. But this looks good. This actually looks good. It's from Gravity Shark, or Galaxy Shark Studios. And have they made anything else? Are they trying to sell anything else? No. So I guess something like this I should just install, just in case it's only free right now.
Reporting for duty.
But I'll do that later when I'm not streaming.
I must move quickly. Photonic bursts.
Yeah, I guess that would be the right move, is install it while it's free so you own it. Next we have a game on Steam called Z-Hive, which looks like it's a top-down strategy game, tower defense game with zombies. Being the fact that zombies are way overplayed and tower defense is way overplayed, I don't see how I could want to play this. It's also got a lot of dark screenshot syndrome going on, even though some of these areas are really well lit. Maybe you're playing as the zombies, and that does change the feel a little bit, but I wouldn't say by much. Because if you're playing as the zombies and you're unleashing a horde through narrow hallways, then it's not super interesting to me. Let's go ahead and play. Z-Hive is $1.79. It says it has English full audio. Yeah, it's just not appealing, just not unique enough. That's actually not a terrible situation to be in, though, frankly, because I definitely have been in instances, and we have definitely seen instances where the vast majority of the game is downright awful. So just a slightly bad game is actually high praise for what it could be on Steam. TechRaptor has an article. The Cell Saga has been confirmed for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. It seems like they're going to confirm every bit of Dragon Ball Z in this game, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, as a way of slowly putting out trickles of information. It's pretty much a no-duh situation that the Cell Saga would be involved in. Why in the world would it not be included?
Converting stored energy.
Like, almost certainly Dragon Ball Z Kakarot will follow all the story of Dragon Ball Z, at least the parts where the main character, Kakarot, or Goku, as he's more commonly known, would go by and would have been around for. I don't see any reason why that would be not the case.
Reporting for duty. Thank you.
The only thing that I would think is slightly questionable is if they're going to go past Dragon Ball Z, or does it all end at well, the Buu saga, I believe, was the end of Dragon Ball Z. I don't think that there's any more story there until it goes into whatever the next Dragon Ball you consider canon, whether that's Dragon Ball GT or whether that's Dragon Ball Kai. Yeah, I don't see why those contents wouldn't be there. Right. Do I want to kill this guy? Because probably could. No, they turn my attack into 1. So
To battle.
just do this and make an advantage out of it. The next game we have on Steam is called Run Thief, and this trailer's been going on for this long and just showing text up until this point. So I assume what this is some Unity assets to show a actually rather nicely designed room, and the actual game is just an infinite runner. Yeah, here's the actual game. It looks like an infinite runner inspired by Prince of Persia, but it looks like it's running about 20 frames per second at best with inconsistent frame pacing. It looks like a mobile game considering there's buttons over here. It just looks terrible. Whereas if you're going to make a infinite runner platformer game, it has to run smoothly, particularly if you're calling run as the name. They want $6.74 for this. This is English, Spain, Spanish, and Russian. I would say this is a low effort game at the very least, a Russian troll game at the very worst. This guy doesn't have health still, he just has a weird pink hue below him that made it look like he might have health
Thank
steal.
you.
Gamatsu has an article here. Brigandine Lunasia Senkai for the Switch announcement has been leaked, updated. Never heard of this game, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a Japanese only RPG. Like, this definitely looks like a different kind of animation style, which I would certainly welcome. Brigandine
Retribution.
sounds like it's a mispronunciation of Brigadoon, which would make sense too.
Reporting for duty.
This guy managed to kill me. Oh my god, darn it. How did that happen? Guess there's not a lot more information we can say there. LibRetro came out with version 1.7.8. Then they came out with a hotfix too. There's some major inclusions in this new version with disk support for like Windows and Mac, where you could put in a PlayStation, a Dreamcast disc at the very least. I'm not sure if you could put in a PlayStation 1 disc, and you probably could. That is a realm away from the RetroPie particularly, so there's a lack of
Reporting for duty.
experience on my part as far as how much actually works past the Nintendo 64 era of games. They also came out with text translation, automatic Japanese to English text optical character recognition translation, making it close to 100% possible that you could play any Japanese game now without a fan patch that would translate it to English, and you still would get the gist of the story at the very least. Now, that's not going to inherently say that you never need localization or you never need a fan patch, because a literal translation of a sentence is only going to get you a literal translation of that sentence, whereas a more like well managed and thought out translation, particularly if it involves the creator's own designs and wishes, might get you closer to the real experience. There's certainly been a lot of conversation though on just even small translations from Japanese to English or English to Japanese even, where things are where the words are changed in ways that people don't agree with, and often it kind of just boils down to a matter of subtlety and context and opinion. Next we have a game on Steam called Knights of the Chalice, which looks like it's a top-down roguelike, but it's turn-based, so it's more like a top-down RPG dungeon crawler, I guess. Visually, it just doesn't have another polish. This is a thumbnail that is reminiscent of a lot of the games that came out in the 80s and 90s for PC, where it would look rather nicely drawn here, and then you'd get into the game and the game would look nothing like it. That was pretty much industry standard for quite a long time, and I'm glad we got away from that dishonesty, and unfortunately a lot of game developers went on to other dishonest things. Knights of the Chalice is $19.99, English only, with 100 achievements, which makes me fear that it's probably an achievement game. Regardless, even if it was an achievement game, that's too much money for this visual quality and not something that I'd ever want to play anyways.
Job done.
Like every other stream, it's now just become the motto to try and get all the news done as fast as possible. So I'll throw it out there, that yeah, I am trying to get things
Converting stored energy.
covered quickly. Next we have a game on Steam called Luna Sanctus, which looks like an RPG Maker game following more traditional path of having an anime-esque thumbnail and then showing us what looks exactly like an RPG Maker game that we've seen hundreds of times before. Slight difference here in the fight sequence, and it seems like there's maybe a placement mechanic that you use. It looks like this was probably using RPG Maker MV instead of the old RPG Maker. That doesn't really change anything. Inherently, all RPG Maker games are not quality because you're starting from a step of using this lazy middle software.
Photonic burst.
And so you of course aren't going to have anything that looks unique or interesting when you're using assets that have been used by hundreds of other people and using an engine that's been used by hundreds of other people to make the exact same games over and over again. Or not the exact same games, but extremely similar games. Luna Sanctus is $9.99 with no discount. It's got 28 achievements, it's English only, and that's more coverage than it deserved, frankly.
Access denied. Access denied.
Photonic burst.
There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called Royal Area, which sounds like they misspelled Royale, because Royale, I believe, is spelled with an E at the end. This looks like an asset flip first-person shooter, PUBG clone, Battlefield, Fortnite clone style game. You can see it's mixed reviewed already. It's 59 cents discounted, so it's too cheap for what it would sell itself as. Apparently it has mobile versions. It's English with full audio, allegedly. So this is a cell phone port by its own admission.
For justice.
Oh man, I could have played a card. I should have played a card. The whole point right now is we're trying to play Paladin cards.
I take this.
So this game, Telling Lies, was from Annapurna Interactive, and it was written by the person who did her story. And I believe originally this game was on its own separate website, and you could interact with the actors as they were acting. So it was this kind of like live performance that was going on. I don't think that worked or got particularly popular since it was on this own separate software. But you're now basically playing her story with a lot more people and a lot more live actors, and you rewinding and fast forwarding, and it's her story with a budget behind it, which, okay, yeah, I'll play that game. Let's hope that compared to her story there's more of a conclusive thing here, and you can see it's mostly positive. I see no reason not to put it just on the wish list. $19.99. There's a soundtrack also, or I could buy the bundle for $17.99 since I already own Her Story. Annapurna Interactive also did What Remains of Edith Finch and Donut County, so it would not be a bad bundle in total to buy. Full audio in English and then a lot of sub-languages are available. French, Italian, German, Spanish, and 9 in total. So, yeah, not a bad choice. It really, unfortunately, I think due to the way it was released originally, didn't get any coverage. Or I'm dreaming up that it was released on a completely different site. I think it was, but I could be thinking of something completely different. Inherently, though, also a slight spoiler for Her Story. In fact, no, major story for spoiler for Her Story here in a second. The secret that is revealed in Telling Lies definitely should not be that somebody has a twin and or somebody has a split personality, and somebody murdered their husband / brother-in-law. So they kind of have to go in a different direction. You could probably tell a murder plot, but even that is a little dangerous. I would more prefer that they move over to telling something else.
Reporting for duty.
And the way this trailer shows it, you're seeing a lot of videos of other people, whereas I'm fairly certain you're only actually focusing on these 4 people, which makes it a lot more manageable. Yeah, I feel like Telling Lies, if it is the game that I recall, was trying to do this augmented reality experience, and I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that worked. It says there's 4 private lives and 96 lies, and 1 big lie. So, almost certainly, the goal would be, once you find the big lie, you can probably find all 96 of the other lies pretty easily, or you find the small lies and then work your way towards the big lie. Yeah, I'll put that on the wish list though. Yeah, there's no reason. There's no reason that I wouldn't want to play that. It would be a weird game to cover. It would be one of those games that immediately spoils it, just like playing Her Story immediately spoiled it. For anybody who hadn't seen it up until that point. And it would be a lot of the other characters talking instead of me as a critic talking, which I'm okay with, but it does make a weird experience at that point. I am still struggling to play Paladin class cards. That's weird. Feels like I'm playing quite a lot. Anyways, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Mabel in the Wood, and I think I saw a review for this. And you can see it's mixed at 10 reviews. I'm just gonna go ahead and reload the page just to see. Mixed at, like, is that 18 reviews? This game actually looks interesting, so I don't understand why people aren't liking it, but I think the review I saw said that it played terribly. 10% for off for $13.49. Bunch of languages supported. Metacritic gives it a 61, so Metacritic doesn't like it. Let's look at the negative reviews. Let's see. I'm gonna keep the one card that I shouldn't keep. Here's a review. I've been looking forward to this game for a while. I need to actually zoom in on these.
Hail
There you
and
go.
well
That
met.
zoomed in really fast. Let's see. I've been looking forward to this game for a while. I have to say I feel I'm a bit disappointed with it. The areas are good and the transformations mostly work well, but the whole experience is somewhat unpolished. Swapping transformations can be a bit clunky. Okay. So you transform in the game. Just gonna end the turn here. The next review starts a lot of wasted potential. Great first hour with interesting premise, graphics, music, and what looks like fun new twist on gameplay staples, followed by a bug-ridden lava section where the grapple controls, use that word loosely, work against you and the checkpoints suddenly become sparse, collision detection flies out the window, and you're forced into a trial and error thing.
Let me think.
So there's just a lava zone in this game, Mabel in the Wood, that is just terrible.
I must move quickly.
I don't know why you'd put a game out in that state. Like, it really screams that somebody didn't even bother to test their game at all. I mean, that's really all I could take from it, is that there was no playtesting that happened.
Not on my
I suppose at that point, if a game comes out like Mabel in the Wood and it's not been playtested and it's just got a terrible experience, and people are telling me from the launch that it's mixed at best, I suppose at that point I have to just believe them. I have to just say, yeah, okay, this is not a game worth playing, and not even bother to put it on the follow list.
That's not a valid target.
So Mabel in the Wood's not making it to the follow list. Techcraft has an article, the London Detective Mysteria Review, London Calling to the Imitation Zone. This looks like a visual novel game. 12 Little Englishmen, a cast of characters. Apparently it's an otome visual novel. Let's see. What did I say? They gave it a 7.5, very good. London Detective Mystery is a fun little diversion for those who enjoy Victorian era literature and heroes and heroines that come from it, but it also fails to establish itself as anything new in the genre and loses focus on the bigger mystery. Pros are, it's got beautiful artwork, interesting overarching mystery, and a character named Pendleton. Cons are it relies too much on source material, and it's not enough focus on the mystery, and it's tired character archetypes. I don't know what the source material is, though. Is it a light novel, or is this based on something else? I think it's probably Sherlock Holmes is what they're referencing as a source material, which arguable you would say something that is a London detective and inherently has to be based off Sherlock Holmes, and thus that's the source material. And unless there actually is something called London Detective Mysteria as a light novel out, that would be the only thing I'd really call actual source material versus just heavy inspiration.
Reporting for duty. For justice.
Again, we're just trying to play cards here. So, it's interesting, I will say, to hear TechRaptor actually spend the effort to review a visual novel, considering so many come out. Also considering how popular they are. That has been a thing where Western video game developers show that they're incredibly biased because they just refuse to review visual novels in any way. Not even to the point, like, almost certainly if Kotaku or Polygon started reviewing visual novels, they would all say the same thing, that the games are inherently sexist because of this reason or that reason, or or because they have bits of nudity in them, or romantic love that they don't agree with. Actually pinning down an SJW as far as what is acceptable examples or depictions of romantic love is pretty impossible. I've never seen anybody actually do it. Because everything is problematic in an SJW's mind. Moving off of that argument, though. So it's nice to see TechRaptor cover that. Now, inherently, I will fully admit that if I was to cover visual novels on a weekly basis, it would be a lot of work, and it would be a lot of games that have nudity and sexual content in them, because a lot of them do. Or at the very least, they have patches that allow for that. So that would have to be something that whatever platform is hosting my reviews would be okay with. But then again, I guess TechRaptor also has an agreement with Nutaku, and they promote every single new Nutaku sex game anyway, so they seem to be okay with that. Moving on, though, we have a game released on Steam called Tinhead, which seems to be a re-release by Pico Interactive. Unfortunately, like every Pico Interactive release, it's a game I don't recognize. It looks like something that easily could have come out in the 90s, but it's definitely not something I recognize at all. It's $4.79 discounted, which is way too expensive for an old game that really doesn't have any relevancy. It says it has full audio English. I suspect that's misleading, to say the least, because of just how maybe it says like Sega or something at the beginning of the launch, and that's it. I don't think that there really would be large amounts of dialogue. So yeah, Tinhead's not making it to the follow list. Yeah, I'm just gonna end this turn here. Next we have a game on Steam called Celsius, which looks like a side-scroll shooter. Skipping over to the screenshots, you can see that the background just changes color, and the enemy variety is few. There's some asteroids and then there's some spaceships. This is 62 cents discounted. It has 6 achievements. It's English only. It's just way too simplistic a game. This would be a really nice looking student project if this was a first year video game developer and they came out and made a shooter that looked like that. I'd be happy with that. That being said, I would also probably in part complain about the controls, because it looks like you're controlling everything with a mouse, both the movement of your spaceship and the shooting, whereas a shooter would almost certainly want to play it with a controller. I want to play everything with a controller, but a shooter in particular, you need that left analog stick and that right analog stick to aim way better than a mouse and keyboard should be used. So yeah, Celsius, not a terrible looking game if it was a student project, first year student project, even a second or third year student project, but definitely not something that should be on Steam. Not a finalized, this is for sale project.
For justice.
Job's done.
Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Robo Incorporated Project, which has a animation here, and then it seems like you're walking around with a slightly large caboosed robot or human. What is this here? What is the actual game though? Are you shooting people? Are you dodging people? You have this gun. It feels like it's a first-person shooter in a weird space world, but it also feels a little clunky looking at the videos. See, my question here, this is early access, but maybe it has a chance of getting better. $5.39. English, Chinese, Russian. Frankly, the fact that it's English, Chinese, and Russian lost me. 7 achievements. I was gonna be a little generous and say, well, maybe this, with some polish, this could turn into a first-person experience. And it is rated positively. So do I put a blanket ban on things that are probably Russian troll games or Chinese troll games? Or do I put this on the follow list? I'm going to be generous. I'm going to say English, Chinese, Russian aside, this looks like maybe this would be polished enough by the time it came out of early access, if it ever comes out of early access, to be something that actually looks like a game. But I bet almost certainly 6 months from now I'll do a by the time I do the next Steam cleanup, I can't say 6 months from now anymore, really. By the next time I do a Steam follow list cleanup, I suspect I will remove it, Robo Inc. project, very easily and very quickly, because it will just be not worth anybody's time. Next, Gematsu has a Death March Club Pi voice acting reveal video. This is either the second or third voice actor reveal video for Death March Club. I don't even know what Death March Club is. So at this point, it's stopped really becoming any actual kind of news. So if I see any more of these, I'm not going to report on them. Because it's getting redundant, to say the least. Right. Well, now what?
To battle!
Just gonna end the turn there. Let's see. And I thought at that bit of news, that's when we're getting into news from a couple days ago, so I do have a lot more news to go through, but everything else I think is going to be older stuff, for whatever that means. TechRaptor has an article, Operation Ember Rise revealed for Rainbow Six Siege. So this is Year 4 DLC for Rainbow Six Siege. People, I suppose, are still somewhat playing Rainbow Six Siege despite its really, in my opinion, lack of actual worthwhile gameplay and lack of properly moderating their community to make it a good experience. It seemed like Rainbow Six Siege in particular has been crazy about kicking out and moderating people, calling the player base toxic, when I don't really agree with that. I have just a couple more Paladin cards to play. Then we'll be done with this recording, I suppose, and this account, and we'll move over to the Americas account. We have a game here on Steam, Island 1979. Now it's showing in dinosaur, and then it's showing a lot of blackness, like dark screenshot syndrome, real bad. It seems like you'd be shooting dinosaurs in here, and Turok did that. Certainly I can't say I have any real problem with playing a fantasy game where you're shooting dinosaurs. But the only video that I'm getting shown here is of just what looks like some demos and then a lot of blackness. It looks like there might be zombies in this game too for no good reason. It's $4.24 discounted. It says it has English full audio. Yeah, I don't think this game is putting itself in a good position, so because it doesn't put itself in the best of light, no pun intended, but actually literally it's not putting itself in the best of light. You can't make it to the follow list. It's hiding something clearly. Next we have a game on Steam called Vanishing Realms, which is very positive overall, but mixed recently. So, Vanishing Realms requires VR, it's on my follow list, and it's mixed recently. There was a game, English and Simplified Chinese. There was a game that, what's this game that they're recommending? I'll check that out later. There was a game that started interacting with one of the Chinese video game companies that's hated, and I think probably rightfully so hated, and got review bombed because of the involvement of that company. Which again, this would be a point where Steam is either going to have to say, well, these are off-topic reviews, or they're going to have to find a justification to say these reviews are on topic because it's the involvement of this company in particular that affected the gameplay. And perhaps in this case that I'm thinking of and can't really remember, it really did affect the gameplay. There's a difference between saying I don't like this game and I'm going to review it negatively because Tencent is involved, and saying ever since Tencent got involved, this game has added an incredible amount of microtransactions and the gameplay experience has gotten a lot worse. And that's the kind of nuance that, frankly, Steam does not want to have to be the curator of and the moderator of. So it's $20 Vanishing Realms, and the top negative reviews say they supported it. Let's see. It's a apparently there's a $15 expansion here. Okay. So you have Vanishing Realms, the Sundered Rift here, which right now is $11.99 discounted expansion that is on top of a $20 early access VR game. So people are really upset about that. Probably, I would suspect, because the average amount of gameplay in this is really, really small, if I was to guess. That would be my suspicion, is that people were supporting this in early access hoping that a lot more content would be added, and instead of a lot more content being added to people who had already purchased the game, which may have been directly promised, they instead just are trying to sell it a second time. Well, personally, since I'm probably never going to have a VR headset anyways, I have no interest in getting into the middle of a mess of somebody who, as a video game developer, who is not thoroughly delighting, to use a phrase, their customers. If your customer base, people that supported you in early access, are not happy, then I'm probably not going to be happy, and I don't need to get in the middle of that. This is the power of the protest in action more than anything else, is to say, you know what, if other people are protesting something, I'm going to trust the mob mentality and not cross that picket line and not give my business to this company. Of course, that mob mentality falls apart when you start realizing that a lot of people are protesting things for completely ridiculous things you don't agree with, but then that's my own dumb fault for not doing the research. And I did do the research in this last game because I read the reviews and I agreed with their opinion that, yeah, if your game didn't satisfy them enough that they're happy for a new expansion, then you shouldn't have put out an expansion. Next, we have a game on Steam called Wet Pants, which looks like it's an asset for a tower defense game. In a weird way, it actually looks like it might be a little bit more polished than your standard stand in one place tower defense game, but it is Roblox looking and it's a VR game. So yeah, I'm not really interested in it. It is free to play, so the price is right, but it requires a third-party end-user license agreement, and doesn't look like it has any in-app purchases. So maybe this is super short, and if you have VR, you would check it out, but I imagine that you'll get 5 minutes of fun at most out of this until you're just bored with it. That might be another example of just the VR boom crashing finally, where people are no longer interested in even making or selling VR games. Next, we have a game on Steam called Mechabolt, which I have no idea what it looks like. It looks like it's an 8-bit platformer game, something you might see on a Game Boy. This might be playable, yeah. It seems like The thing about the Game Boy too is it was running at such a low frequency that you're never really going to get smooth motions, and you can kind of see that in how this is being played, where you're jumping and then controlling via air braking the jumps.
The pleasure is mine.
Alright, let's see. Let's play over here.
Protocol 7.
For justice.
The pleasure is mine.
There you go. Let's go ahead and squelch this. Can he do 9 damage? Yes, he can. So Mechabolt is $4.24 discounted. Man, it's quiet. Has a bunch of language supported. Has 14 achievements. Looks like actual work was put into their page. This deserves to be on the follow list. I feel like this is what I want to see if you're going to make a Game Boy style game in a modern environment. Something that's fully colorized, that is just going with a camera zoomed in but still pixely 8-bit style graphics, but even in its graphics it's more zoomed in, it's more polished. This is probably closer to 16-bit pixel art than it really is 18-bit pixel art. And when I say bit, I'm talking about colors. So, but what I really mean is it's closer to a Super NES style character drawing than a NES style character drawing. Alright, so yeah, that'll go on the fall list. And we don't see the end, which is good considering that we have 2 other accounts I need to play. I may still re-roll this for more gold, or I may just leave this. We're in a good position for Wednesday on the Asian account. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.